There we go. Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the fourth MetaNet ICU online meeting. We will be starting with Kurt with 40 minutes and a bit of Q&A, and then we'll be moving over to Ari from Kryptonize It and Cash Pay Freedom. And then last, we'll be moving over to Lorian from Semply. So over to Kurt first. Thank you.
Hey, everybody. I wasn't pre-planning to do any kind of interviewing or hosting or anything necessarily, but I jumped on. I've been doing all weekend. I did a kind of a giveaway. So I decided on Friday night. I knew it was going to be a blizzard here in Chicago, and I said, "All right, let's have some fun with it. Let's see if we can get people sending around cash tags. Let's see if we can onboard some people. I'll get some Twitter followers out of it, but I'll give away somewhere between a penny and $1 to anybody who tweets, and then I will give away one whole BSV to a lucky random person." So spent the whole weekend managing that. What was really, really cool, what I was surprised was White Rabbit jumped over, sent me a private message about 20 minutes into the thing and said, "Hey, why didn't you let me know this?" And I said, "Well, I don't know you." But so she and I worked out, at least I assume it's a she, the avatar is a she, and basically just worked out. She's like, "Hey, let's see if we can bust out an API and do all this stuff." And I said, "Hey, I don't work for Handcash or anything. I'm just a fan." And so she said, "Well, let's see if we can connect with Alex and Hoffa. Let's see if we can integrate Handcash, see if the API is available and ready to rock and roll." And then we ended up just having, I've probably exchanged 1,000 messages, DMs with her over the weekend. I onboarded about 300 people into my Twitter, like that followed me for the first time, and then several hundred people received pennies, and got a bunch of people just rocking and rolling with Handcash. Answered a lot of questions, got a lot of DMs from people who had no idea what any of it was. Got a couple of people who were kind of vaguely BTC people to be like, "Hey, wow, this is actually really cool." Dealt with a couple of fudsters, of course, but BSV is still a thing, and just basically said like, "Hey, you know what? The drama's over. The fork is over. We're going our own direction. BCH can do what they want. And BSV left with all the cool projects, frankly." And so, yeah, it was a really interesting thing to put a deadline. So I put the deadline of Sunday at noon Central Standard Time, that's Chicago time, and said, "Hey, at this point, I'm going to cut it off. So people, please, jam these things out." And then White Rabbit still today is like banging out this API and sending pennies all over the place. So still right at this moment, if you want to go to my Twitter, which is at KurtWookertJR, you can just drop your cash handle and her API will automatically send you, I think it's a penny, but it's gone. I think she was using Thai bot for a little bit, which made it like, I don't even know, 1,000th of a penny is what you'd receive. But it was pretty cool. Exciting little thing to happen there. So that was my weekend. That was my Handcash experience for this weekend. Anything specific? What else should I go over? Joel, I can't hear you.
Oh, there we go. The banner recently, we kind of moved to a gold banner.
Oh, absolutely. So early on, yeah, we had, day one, first of all of us, all the BSV people were like, we're not like, there's not going to be a split. And then all of a sudden there was a split based on checkpoints and all of that stuff. So the other side decided not to play by the rules. And then instantly there was this, well, BCH was green or orange. What the heck is BSV going to be? And we had the camps between blue and gold. We had Ari pretty hardcore in the anti-blue category, which I agreed with in a basic sense, but I think there was a good conversation both directions. Like, how does branding affect perception? And does it even matter? Do we need Bitcoin SV to be front and center? Do we need it to be the concept? Or I kind of like the argument that it should function more as plumbing. Like, I don't care what color my plumbing pipes are in the walls. I just care that they work. So gold seems like it won out. There was a whole the BCom rounds of voting. I think the initial offering from BCom got pretty negative with the weird blue kind of cartoony bees and I was not a fan. I was not a fan of that version of blue at all. I was a little bit indifferent. I was kind of torn on like doing a nice, classy, prominent blue or gold, but ultimately gold was decided. I liked the gold. I was a fan of the gold. I helped design a couple versions of it, actually. So some of the things that got pitched there were designed. My wife is a professional graphic designer. I own an ad agency in Chicago. So I talked to some people who, some of my people who are like, I don't know. Like this is actually kind of a difficult branding quandary. But ultimately, yeah. So the couple of rounds of voting and a couple of rounds of dealing with some of the drama that surrounds proof of social media and voting for colors and that kind of stuff all worked out. I'm actually really happy with it. I think it's a nice variation on both what should be expected of Bitcoin and but also putting our own spin on it and saying, hey, we're different, but we're not new. Like we are Bitcoin. We define it, and I think the brand shows that quite well. So there's actually, let's see, logo. Yeah. So the drive, there's a Google Drive from Tommy. I forget his Twitter handle, but he's some kind of independent graphic designer. Does all kinds of nice stuff. He's been doing stuff in the Bitcoin Cash community for quite a long time. And he put together like a whole branding book with the new gold logo. It's got images of like paper wallets, stuff that can be used for like Facebook and Twitter banners. He's just got all kinds of interesting looking, gold coins spilled on the floor, that kind of stuff. So just nice branding tools. And those are all, those will be available to anybody watching. The link is in the chat over here. Right. There we go. There's the mute. So, but yeah, cool stuff. I'm actually really glad we're going with the gold. I think it's cooler than Lambo Orange. I was never a fan of Bitcoin Lambo Orange. I liked kind of the old school Satoshi gold logo, but it's also super not appropriate today. I think the way that it was branded was very mid 2000s. So I think going forward, I really like the sort of the mustard gold color and the variation on the font too. The font is
might I just point out the font is nice and upright.
Yeah, it's classy and structured, but it is actually in the same family of font. So the font family is Ubuntu. So the whatever you call it, the italic Bitcoin font that you would see most places is just Ubuntu italic, and we moved to using Ubuntu Standard, which I think is classier. It's upright and kind of displays like, hey, we're here, we're strong, we're real gold, and we're the real Bitcoin. So I think that's a good first step, especially since it was a little bit dramatic early on with what color we'd be going with as everybody was kind of scrambling. I think we were all a little bit surprised that all of a sudden we were perma split by the checkpoints.
I'd like to ask a question about the education. What kind of education plans are coming from your corner for this year?
So, well, I'm working with a couple groups. I own a company called CryptoTradersPro.com. What we do is take people, the average person coming into crypto thinks they want to get into crypto because there's money to be made in crypto. So I think that that's the best kind of wide net to cast and say, hey, okay, if you want to learn to make money with Bitcoin or whatever, let's talk about that. We'll go over basic technical analysis and talk about that kind of stuff, talk about the charts, because that's what people think they want. And then what we end up doing is giving them all kinds of fundamentals, talking about, all right, let's teach you about hash power. Let's talk about where fundamental value actually comes from and how to do these things well. So we put together this educational community. I have my own YouTube channel that goes over all kinds of fundamentals on a bunch of stuff. But I'm also working, part of me being the fundamental analyst for that company led me to being a Bitcoin casher, and it made me very much in the Bitcoin SV camp when that became the thing. And, quite simply, I believe hash power matters and fundamentals matter. So I've been working with people in the Bitcoin SV community as soon as there was obviously going to be a split. And when that split became permanent, I started working with Dale, who is it The Wild Card on Twitter? And she does wonderful stuff. She's a wonderful, delightful woman. and she brought it upon herself to connect with the Keyport TV people and say, hey, well, let's do some live casts. Like, let's schedule them. Let's make them monthly. Let's do 2 or 3 hours and really help educate people on what is Bitcoin SV, how to use it, what its value is, why there's value. And it's been great working with her. So I've been working with her on maybe 2 or 3 times a week, connect with her, private chat, go over basics, try to get everybody professionalized, get everybody a little bit scripted, get everybody kind of worked out. I'm trying to get everybody to get these lovely blue microphones. They're $50 or $60 depending on where you are in the universe. You can get them on Amazon. They'll ship to you in a day or two, and they help you sound professional, talk professional. But I've been going over how to set up like professional backgrounds, and then really go over the fundamentals. Like, what do you know about Bitcoin? Because there are a lot of people that know a lot of things, but nobody knows everything. So if we can get 6 or 7 people that can all connect, we're doing these monthly meetings. They're going to be live for free on Keyport TV. Funded. First of all, thank you to Sumanth, who put these together with Dale, to just show them, and people can come in. They can pre-prepare questions, or we can take questions live on the air. Right now it is me, it's Marianne Jett, and Raina. Marianne and Raina do a history segment. I'm going over sort of how to learn to use the tools. So we're covering block explorers and a couple things this coming one. And then it kicks over to, I think it's going to be Alex, Daniel Krawitz, and a handful of others to do a little more of a free-for-all format, but going over sort of philosophy and answering questions and that kind of stuff too. So kind of a cool concept to just sort of give people a regular rotating resource that, like, hey, once a month I can tune in, I can ask questions of the people that are making decisions and making stuff happen. I'll be interviewing the guys from whatsonchain.com. Couple of guys, and now there's an anonymous guy there too who may be in this call, but he popped on last night. We were doing a planning session last night, and he popped on with an anonymous mask on and a hood over his head and was like, who the heck is this guy? And Mo, who seems to be the technical director over at What's on Chain, is like, oh, he's our secret volunteer coder guy. So could get wild if anybody wants to tune in and watch my segment with with What's on Chain. But yeah, they go about 3 hours, 4 hours, depending on who's doing what. But I'll be kicking that off the next time around. And that will be, actually, let me double check. I don't remember what day it's supposed to be now, because I've just started to drink my coffee for the day. And actually, Joel, do you know the date on that?
The educational thing is the 29th of January, I do believe.
Yes. That sounds right.
Keep an eye on Twitter, people, and there will be like announcements and such. Yeah. I have another question. It sounds like things are getting very well organized, and in the background things are happening, and there's a lot of good things to look forward to this year. But say as a newcomer or someone who's recently been tricked by say some random misinformation out there, wants to come along and get involved, how can they connect and get involved and start helping?
It's a good question. I think, we've obviously got a killer community on Twitter. A lot of us are on Twitter and active there to answer questions. MetaNet.ICU is a good place to pick up videos, basic resources. I think BitcoinSV.io also can connect you to wallets and everything else. But a lot of places. I think we're lucky to have a lot of people that are very happy to kind of help. One thing I noticed over the weekend on Twitter is that, people want to onboard people using Handcash and CentB and Money Button. And we've got a lot of these really, really nice, simply discoverable tools in the BSV camp. And learning to use them is as simple as really kind of joining any of us on Twitter, because we're all here just enjoying each other's company and enjoying using the tools and sharing the love of Bitcoin. But do you have any other, MetaNet.ICU is a good spot. And I like BitcoinSV.io. So there's the plugs there. What else would you recommend, Joel?
MetaNet ICU, I would say, is something that's still in the works. Very, very young, and give it some time. But it will be a place to go to. It still is a place to go to at the moment. We are taking a open arms attitude. We are focused solely on Bitcoin, which people call Bitcoin SV, but to us it's Bitcoin. We will be calling it Bitcoin. But we are connected to various other places, so feel free to come to us if you want to learn to anything about developing business connections, building on Bitcoin as it's supposed to be like, and anything more.
I think honestly, so we were talking a little bit about Dale, who is Mad in Melbourne on Twitter, and she does a really good job retweeting good stuff. She seems to just follow the thought leaders, and if anybody says something important, she tends to retweet it, but she gives her own spin on it too, and she's super helpful there. So she'll do things such as somebody will talk about economics, talk about an economic principle that makes Bitcoin valuable, or she'll talk about mining economics or some simple tool or just some phrase that she thinks is helpful. But I've found that when she is awake and tweeting, she is like the retweet machine that really matters. So that's a good spot if you're a Twitter person. I think we may need more help on places like Facebook. I don't know that we have a good Facebook presence, but there's a lot of people on Facebook that do quite a bit of crypto. I'm in a couple of crypto groups that are 50, 60,000 people pretty easy. So maybe we should have somebody dedicated to running a semi-official Facebook page. Any volunteers?
Facebook's a bit beyond me. Well, no, it's not beyond me. It's just eventually maybe I'm reaching out to it slowly. I've been admin for openly admin for a couple of Facebook groups for like 5 years now.
Sure.
And I tell you, but it's been an interesting journey, trying to explain Bitcoin and then going through the journey of fighting against Blockstream and the whole Bitcoin narrative, and then moving to BCH and explaining that narrative, and now moving to here. And the whole theme all through is Bitcoin. And eventually we're at a point, like we've been saying, where we can explain Bitcoin fully and the MetaNet and how script language works and the opcodes work, and it all fits together, and people can start using these things to integrate with software like Handcash and Money Button, where you're actually not just passing money from A to B, but in that process of passing from A to B, you're also logging in, signing a contract, proving your identity, or getting a receipt via op return. I'm not going to say too much because there's a lot of things in works, but it's giving things away. But yeah, this is the true use of using Bitcoin, the interconnectivity of Bitcoin, where a traditional payment credit card debit system on a website or in a physical mortar store does a simple transaction, A to B. And there's many things that it doesn't do. A separate thing it does is spit out a receipt, well, which it doesn't do. You've got the till and the paper receipt or an electronic receipt. But in a Bitcoin transaction, as people are learning, like Money Button, for example, with one click, you can do the transaction, spit out a receipt, give someone a ticket, and do a host of other things together beautifully. So yeah, this is part of what we're bringing to everyone, and part of what you're bringing in the education side of things to people.
Sorry, that was my wife's phone ringing in the background there, and she's out of the room. And so it's interesting. What do you think, Joel? I'm torn actually back and forth whether I think that Bitcoin will be used as a unit, whereas like I go buy my coffee and they say, yeah, it'll be, whatever, to 350 bits? Or do you think that Bitcoin will ultimately just kind of turn into this plumbing mechanism and will use fiat value to communicate? Was it both?
Both. It will be the unit of transaction and the thing signifying this is a coffee. Right.
Interesting. I don't know. I go back and forth. I wonder if that's like a generational thing, because like money's supposed to be three things. This is your basic economics class, right? It's supposed to be a store of value, a means of exchange, and a unit of account. And right now,
money is misunderstood. Money at the basis of it is information.
Sure.
and it's a passing of information from A to B.
Sure.
Now that information can be, just money, or it can be money and many other things. Bitcoin, because it allows us to split that meaning of money into many things, and not just split it like via multiple output, but also attach various things to it, make it do different things. That meaning of money, that passing of A to B information, can be more. And Bitcoin allows for that. It can be as much as we design it to
Sure.
be. This
Absolutely.
is the blooming of information. So not only are you passing A to B, buying your coffee, you are also doing the receipt thing, signifying you just brought a coffee maybe, and doing all the other host of things which Bitcoin is capable of doing. Maybe
Cool.
tying up your loyalty points as well at the same time.
Right. Yeah,
Instead
no,
of separately swiping a loyalty card and then paying for your thing and all of that, you just go sweep and it's all done all together.
Sure. That's funny. I gave a presentation in September. There was a conference about, it was called Loyalty Live, loyaltylive.com. They asked me and my partner to come speak. What was amazing is that everyone was there for this sort of vague, almost everybody there had no idea what Bitcoin or blockchain even really was. They were there to see if there was a way to integrate their loyalty business into the blockchain. Like, I gave this presentation after watching 2 days of people talking about, here's what Ethereum's going to do, and here's what all these things are going to do. And I went up on stage and said, who here has ever bought anything with Bitcoin? And everybody's kind of looking around. I was just like, does anybody here have a mobile Bitcoin wallet or any, like, literally nobody. And I said, so, okay, here's my presentation. I just stupid slideshow. I went for like 15 minutes and said, look, so you can exchange. And at the time, I want to say I was using the bitcoin.com wallet, but I could be mistaken. But, and just showed like sending money back and forth between me and my partner, and like, hey, you can use this as a means of exchange, but you can also integrate your loyalty program into the whole thing. So you can program transactions using point of sale to, allocate reward points and allocate, all these different things. So you can, yes, buy the coffee, but you can also do all these other things and integrate. But it starts with people understanding the simple use. And this was like, everybody's like, I was swarmed after this speech because everybody there, it was like, they were basically convinced that blockchain was too complicated and that there was no simple way that, because literally like there were developers from like Ethereum Foundation or the Ethereum Business Alliance, whatever it's called, literally saying like, eventually, we're going to, like 2 years down the road, we're finally going to be in a place where we can do X, Y, and Z. And, and these people were from multi-billion-dollar organizations that do loyalty programs and stuff, all saying like, well, this will work someday. And I just told them like, hey, there are people in this community right here that can work with you. So, at the time I was trying to get people to hook up with BCH, and I still have these relationships with these people. Kind of let the dust settle with the fork, and get back to working on some of this stuff. But I'm actually working on the regulatory part, which is the nightmare in the U.S. and around most of the Western world. But figuring out how to get some of these point of sale integrations with loyalty points and everything so that people can start to have these simple integrations that are no longer me, knocking on somebody's door and saying, hey, do you want to accept Bitcoin at your business? And finally get people saying, hey, how the heck do I simplify my system by using Bitcoin? And we'll get there, but it's a grind.
It's taken us this long to get, only recently to get back to the point where we can now integrate things like the loyalty things and more into Bitcoin. But now that we finally can, and give yourselves and all of us a bit of time to build the systems,
right,
and then also build the educational systems which can teach businesses, look, this is actually how you're supposed to use Bitcoin, because that's been a huge thing missing. All in the years has been, look, this is how Bitcoin works from A to B. But there hasn't been much education towards businesses. But it's been a lot of education towards developers.
Sure. Yeah, which is outrageous. You know,
Yeah,
well, I mean, it makes sense, but it's right. It's, you know, let the plumbers decide how the toilets flush, but you know,
yeah. But the
like
people who are actually going to use it might need to be consulted.
exactly. Yeah, and that's been a big problem. It's funny because I've been in this space I've actually been a Bitcoiner since like 2012, but I got super turned off in 2015 and kind of tuned out for a while as soon as the scaling debate started, and I was just like, what the hell is going on? Like, why is this not taking off and crystal clear in 2015? I was frustrated at that point and saying like, man, these people have lost their marbles. I didn't, you know, dump all my Bitcoin at that point, but I was just blown away that, you know, guys like Luke Dash Jr., for example, just like specifically talking about breaking the functionality of Bitcoin in order to sort of conform to these vague economic principles. But, you know, we absolutely need to get rid of this computer science first mentality, because that's the kind of thing that is developed in the background, and that's good. It's just like anything else. Like I expect a big you know, drug company or whatever to be doing R&D but not making any of it my problem. I need aspirin for a headache, and ultimately like my understanding of aspirin needs to be open the bottle, take one with water, and move on with your life. And there's very, very few people doing that. I think, you know, outside of our community, like it is happening a little bit with you know, the other side, the BCH. I think the other community to really keep an eye on is the Dash community, who is, I mean, they're evangelists, not in a,
No,
you know.
I'm going to have to disagree with you there, because I actually know a fair bit of history of Dash.
Dash itself is no good. Don't get me wrong. I'm just saying that the focus there of
the focus. Yeah, I wouldn't mind stealing focus. That's definitely good stuff to steal.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, part of what you're going to be helping building.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, a lot of us. I'm just going to say to everyone here, keep an eye on the chat, please. If you have any questions, ask in the chat. And also keep an eye on your PMs in case I've PM'd anyone.
Yep.
Sorry, over to you, Kat.
Got Alex commenting here. They're all paid for it. That, you know, when I mentioned Dash, yes, the Dash DAO absolutely pays everybody. So everybody in their community is typically an employee of the Dash DAO. However, the thing to pay attention to is that, you know, they have their value proposition is to be used as a means of exchange, and then to undergird. So we really should view them very much as competition. And there are things to learn from any competitor, in my opinion, but I've been wrong before. So back to that point, you know, getting to a place where this stuff can be non-convoluted, that the regular users can become real users. You know, you got Bitcoin Core saying the only people that are users are people that run full nodes, which is outrageous. And now our community, you know, the integration with MoneyButton, Handcash, SentB, and some of these other tools that are very simple, very discoverable. You know, I had 25 people over this weekend say, "Oh, like this is how Bitcoin works with the whole Handcash ping a penny roll." And it was like, yes, this is how something is supposed to work in the real world for a consumer, and that needs to be the focus, truly.
Years ago, in 2013 or so, when I used to go to pubs in my area and Exeter in Bristol, I used to talk to the pub people and say, "Oh, would you accept Bitcoin? Would you accept Bitcoin?" And, you know, there were actually a few which I did convince just for a couple of drinks at the time, which was great. It was brilliant. And then around 2015, when the scaling like stuff did all start kick off, I stopped because basically it was embarrassing. It was just,
right.
You know, I'm not going to go into it, but yeah, it was bad. But now, with the Handcast things and SentB and everything coming back together, I've actually, you know, I start feeling like doing that again.
Sure. I went through the same thing. I was that guy between 2013 and 2015. I was super excited about Bitcoin. I got a couple of local businesses to accept it for payments and stuff. And then, I mean, everybody knows. So when it went from like, hey, this is awesome, to like, why am I doing this? And then showing my face at these places and saying, hey, Kurt, you realize you're crazy, right? And Bitcoin doesn't work. And like, yeah, Kurt, sorry, basically.
We're going to move to Ari soon, but can I get you to quickly mention Unwriter? And,
absolutely.
Stuff he's been doing for the just for next.
So, gosh, first of all, Unwriter prefers to go by the it pronoun, which they have been very clear about. But we were prognosticating yesterday, Dale and I, about whether all of the great developers, because White Rabbit also seems to be a female, but Unwriter, I can't even imagine how much work goes into how rapidly some of this stuff is being deployed. But Unwriter switched very publicly from BCH to BSV as soon as that happened, and explained why, and explained the developers panacea that has been created here with the SV community. And I mean, literally, every other day for the past 2 weeks, Unwriter has put out some new huge thing going on. Today it was BitPipe, which I've yet to look into. I saw the announcement. I need to go read it myself, but BitDB and all the different stuff that's been going on just in the last 10 days has turned into all of these different chat apps and database query tools and just stuff that has made, in fact, the API that was sending out all of the stuff through the Handcache app for my Ping a Penny roll was all put together because of Unwriter's work in the underground, which is exactly what I've been talking about. Like, let the plumbers figure out the right way to do the plumbing, and then we get to use these tools in real life. And when we use the tools in real life, people say, oh, wow, this just works. And it becomes as important and as ignored as good plumbing, right? Like, I expect my shower and my sinks and my toilet to just work, and then I can go on with my life. And Unwriter is doing that work along with a couple others, but Unwriter is doing all kinds of amazing stuff to really integrate tools that give us the opportunity to build. Anybody that's an entrepreneur out there that is, 3 months ago was saying, crap, I'd have to develop all these different underlying things. Now you can work on your user experience and just connect it to things that are there just by a simple API, and it's awesome. So I think everybody should go ahead and tip Unwriter and White Rabbit. They both accept tips, so let's keep them encouraged, because they really are doing some very important stuff in the background.
Yes. And more importantly, look at their work and share it.
Yeah, absolutely. If anybody deserves retweets.
Yeah, it's them too, definitely. We are going to move over to Ari from Kryptonize It and Cash Pay Freedom. If you are ready, Ari.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Over to you.
Yeah. Can you hear me loud and clear? Is everything working like
sounds good to me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So I actually wasn't really planning on doing this either. It was supposed to be Remy doing this, but well, things go as they go. So here I am. I'm not sure I'm going to fill up the whole 40 minutes, but I'm going to do my best, and we'll see where we end up. So first off, on CashPay, we started CashPay out as a fork of Copay. It had the first spend and replace. It was the first one with the order anything service. It was basically the first wallet that really treated Bitcoin as cash, because all other wallets were really just to store it. I mean, most of the wallets are multi-coin wallets, and they have the only functionality that they have is switching between the coins. So it's basically just for storing. So that was pretty good, and it was picked up pretty well. The problem we ran into was that it was dependent on a BitPay dependency. And since BitPay really is focused on BTC mostly, and since they do not scale on chain, the requirements are different. So the products they're building are not really suited for a chain that's supposed to scale on chain. So the issue we ran into was that the wallet simply broke down every time that the miners wanted to show off how far they were with their infrastructure. We were part of the failure of the network, and that really felt really bad. So we decided to ditch it all, everything we did. It was an expensive lesson to learn that you should just follow the white paper, and yeah. So that's what we started doing. Now we recently released the new CashPay Freedom. It's an SPV, and right now it's as close as we can get to a real SPV with what the network can give us. We tried figuring out a way to scale it globally. We did, and then one of the guys realized, well, if SpaceX or anybody builds moon base, then this isn't going to scale. So that so we started thinking on it again, and I think we now have a way to scale it through the solar system, through planet bouncing and moon bouncing. So I think it's going to be great.
What a roadmap!
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's really when you just do what the white paper tells you, it's that simple that it can scale no matter how big you want it. So that's basically the idea of it. Just scale unlimitedly or unboundedly. Well, yeah. So we're working on that. There's a lot of work to be done still, because really a lot of it is really underdeveloped. A lot of the technology that's used for it, like if you want to go off-world, then there are stuff that's usable, but it's not used for Bitcoin yet. So so we're working on it, but I heard today it's in a compilable state. But if you worked with developers before, then you know that means a lot of debugging left. I think. Well, we're just trying to use the chain as little as possible. So everything is P2P, and we're thinking of a swarm formation of wallets, which uses one source of truth, and that's the chain. So I think that's all I can say on the new SPV. On Sharkpool, so the goal of Sharkpool is to let miners use the executive power that this governance system model gives them. And it's also another goal is to also show that all of these chains, they are economic systems at first. Afterwards, they're technical, but first they're economical, and they can be broken by economics. Nothing technical about it. Right now, there's quite a lot of interest from miners because making mining profitable is quite hard in this market. So yeah, especially BTC miners are having a hard time, and they're knocking on the door, which they do because they're not committed to one chain. And that's really an issue that a lot of these alts don't understand. If you have miners that are not committed to your chain, to having one chain, you have a security liability, and that's going to show at some point. It's going to show right now because Sharkpool is going to make it more profitable for your miners to mine through Sharkpool than to just mine the alt. So yeah.
Can I just throw something in there? At a later point, we are going to get around to adding on the forums, the MetaNet ICU forums and other places, ways for old miners, old mining farms, old turned off GPU farms or old ASACs, which people might want to use again, can possibly contribute to this. We'll be setting up instructions as well to people who want to build new GPU farms just to experiment and have a bit of fun, who might also want to contribute. But will come in time. Back over to you.
Yeah. So there's a lot of interest actually from a lot of sides, from sides I didn't expect before, from people I didn't expect before. So it's quite funny to see like all these people interested in working on Sharkpool because of long-term interests, and it's a sign that Nakamoto consensus still works, and that the invisible hand is still at work, because it's still pushing people together who are actively working towards one chain and one chain only. So yeah, that's going well. The only other thing I can say on Sharkpool is, the business model is quite unique. Some of you know about it, some of you don't. There has been some criticism on it. But yeah, like I said, I have a plan. You're not going to like it, but it's going to work, and it's going to be great. One of the things that we're doing to start off with right now is we're going to gamify the experience for home users and for the general public, and we're going to start offering simple mining contracts where you invest in Sharkpool, and in return you get a piece of every mining hardware we sell through Sharkpool. So that way you can invest in Sharkpool. There are some other mining contracts I would like to offer, but there were some legality issues with it, or people had some questions about it. So I decided to just get some advice on that. I think it'll all be all right, and at the end of the day, I think I'm going to do it anyway. So, yeah.
That's a question I had actually. Like, I think proof of work coins, like they're consenting to be governed by miners.
Yeah.
Like that's the basic premise, right? So even, I know there was, discussion of like, oh, who hit Ethereum Classic and that kind of thing. And I'm like, no, that wouldn't make sense. But, the miners decide, like they're the accountant, right?
Yeah.
So if you trust your accountant, you're consenting to the accountant's signature ultimately. So is that, when you mentioned like legal issues, is it like whether rewriting a chain would become like, is that illegal? Is that the kind of the stuff that you're looking into?
Yeah. That's the stuff I'm looking into. But it's I view it as if you move to a country, you're consenting to the laws of that country.
Yeah, absolutely.
And in different countries, you have different rules, and on different chains, you have different rules. What we intend to do is use those rules exactly like they are written down, like they work,
Sure.
to economically incentivize those miners to destroy that chain, because it's more profitable to destroy it than to mine it.
Yeah. Oh, it's brilliant. One of the things I know a little something about real estate, and like you can do exactly that with somebody that hasn't paid their taxes on a property or whatever. So if they're in mortgage default and they haven't paid their taxes, you can simply pay their tax bill and pay, a couple of mortgage payments and just assume the title of that home. So like that strikes me as similar to what you're going after, is like, hey, this chain doesn't actually have value. So
yeah, actually the only value that they really have or is the hash, like the
right.
That's the only value that there's there. So
sure.
So what we're trying to do is just concentrate that value into Sharkpool, and use that to
I want to point out with this point that you'll be using it to defend Bitcoin. A lot of people have this misinformation about that Sharkpool is about attacking other coins, when in reality, what has happened over the years was there was one Bitcoin and it received 1,000 cuts, and it is bled 1,000 times and more. And now there has come along antigens which are defending it. And Sharkpool is a manifestation of one of these antigens which have come along to defend it. And this is called defending. In a human body, in a biological system, when this happens, the cells which come along to defend your body defend you and keep you alive and get rid of all the diseases and the cancer and all the shit coins which are out there. So think of it like the body I can't remember the right word. I do know the right word, but I don't really want to say it. Excreting bad genes and stuff. Yeah, as the body does. Yeah. Sharkpool's way will be like flushing shit coins down the toilet, basically. Is the metaphor I'm trying to get to. But yeah, sorry, back over to you.
I got a question for you, Ari. Yeah. When looking at like when the Ethereum Classic 51% attack happened, I was like, oh man, there it goes. Like that coin, like there's, first of all, empty block after empty block on Ethereum Classic. So it was like, okay, nobody's using it anyways. Now it's going to take a dive. And I was shocked That, I mean, it's still holding most of the value that it had from before the attack.
That's crazy, right?
Yeah, what does that even mean? Like, because I was convinced, I was like, okay, that's it. Let's at least lose half of its value or something, right?
Yeah, it just doesn't. I don't know, man. These people, most people in crypto apparently are really into gambling. And you know, the best thing you can gamble on right now is Shark Pool. So I'm like, I think it's a win-win for everybody. But the issue with Ethereum Classic was that it was temporarily, and it wasn't taken to the extreme. Like
Sure.
what Charcoal is going to do is like months on months, if it's necessary, of empty
Sure.
blocks and reorgs. And changing consensus, because if you have more than 51%, you can change consensus if you want to. That's the rules of the game. And if you don't like playing that game, you should go play somewhere else. But that's
Right.
what we're playing right now. I think the attack on ETC was more of an attack. There was also a double spend. Sharple isn't going to double spend anything. Double spending is stealing. People have to get clear in their head, like Joel said, it's not an attack, it's a defense, and
Right.
the defense mechanism is Nakamoto consensus. And if you don't understand the rules, please read the white paper. That's it, basically.
Is the white paper a contract, in your opinion?
It's like the Constitution or something. I don't know.
Sure.
Where to compare it with.
What it is, the white paper is a technical description, but this technical description fits within the law. And if people know e-licensing and e-money laws, it is that Bitcoin, because of its technical description and the way it is, it's not a great technical description, I might add, that it could have some more information added to it, which it will at one point. But basically...
Wait, are you saying we're going to change the white paper?
No, we're not going to change it. No one's changing the white paper. What I'm saying is that a lot more information is going to come out, which will give a lot more explanation on how Bitcoin works. So people can... There wasn't enough information. As someone said, he started a race and everyone ran in different directions.
Yeah.
But basically... Bitcoin works within the law, so it's not like the white paper is law. But if you start different stuff, altcoins, and you're not actually doing Bitcoin and going by the white paper, then it's quite likely that you're not actually abiding the national laws of your country. And if you know, like the old e-money licensing and stuff, what happened to Liberty Dollar and all the other previous attempts to create a currency. They didn't end well. No, basically. So it's not so much. Yeah, it's just it fits within the law. It's not that it is.
Yeah, but the issue right now is like all of these alts are illegal. Basically, we know this, but nothing is happening because law enforcement isn't enforcing anything. So I think it's time for us to self-govern, and we have a perfect government's model for it. So yeah,
I mean, it's as you're saying, by playing by the laws of each particular cryptocurrency, you can actually disrupt every single one by playing by the laws cleverly. And so, I mean, just to add on to the law thing, like you are saying, each different cryptocurrency is like its own sovereign nation with its own particular laws. As well as, but Bitcoin's the only one which actually got that it can have its own laws, but it also needs to get on with the current laws which exist.
Yeah.
But none of the others actually got that particular bit.
No.
So you could break them all by their own particular laws while, doing it all fine and legal.
Yeah. Exactly, and all of the developers working on these alts all fail to understand that it's an economic system they built. They just fail to understand that it's economical in nature. It's not technical. So anything you build, it doesn't matter what you build. The incentives are probably wrong because it's not Bitcoin. So you can game those incentives, however, to gain a lot of money or to drain them of their wealth.
Indeed. I'm going to, anyone in chat, do we have any questions regarding Shark Pool? Or there was a, there was a question in chat which was who is behind Simply Cash, which we don't actually, does anyone know who's behind Simply Cash? I don't know. There's a call out there to Simply Cash. People are curious. I'm not sure why, but there you go. What is the first target for Shark Pool? Is there anything in mind? Now that BCH is put its head above. No, I'm not saying anything. But, you know.
No, I think so we did some testing last year, like in December. We did some testnet testing on BCH, and we already saw it working actually, because the additional resources were put into testnet to make sure the wormhole developers could keep on developing their own grave, I guess, because they're not there anymore. Anyway, it worked because they put additional resources in it. That's the whole point of Nakamoto consensus. Then we moved on to what was it? Bitcoin private. I think we did that publicly. A couple of like a week or so of empty mining. It was quite fun because some exchanges, or one exchange, like asked for 1,500 confirmations for Bitcoin private at a certain point. So that was like, yeah, it works. So that was some nice testing. But I think because most of the inactive farms, or the farms that are active, and most of the alts we had our eye on from the start are on equal hash. I think it's going to be one of those.
Right, that's an interesting question on chat. Is can you combine your an empty block defense mechanism with big blocks? So if you produce like what would be Satoshi shotgun, some version of that, and produce a block.
Yeah, so
then,
I don't know if you can produce it like a huge block, because whatever the consensus rules of the alt are, I mean, some don't allow you to make bigger blocks. Like you have a maximum on it. So even if you do and you send it, you did it for nobody, because you nobody's seeing your block. So that really defeats the point of it. What you could do is if it has some economic value, that chain, if there is some economic activity on it, you could disrupt that by indeed pointing Satoshi shotgun to it and just filling the mempool up, and just keeping it filled that at a certain point some transactions just drop off automatically, and just keep on empty mining.
Some interesting tactics, and there I'm sure there might be many more hidden away under the bonnet. I'm going to say again, anyone who's interested in, I don't think I actually said earlier, anyone who's interested in Shark Pool, you can find them on Twitter at Shark Pool, and you can follow them, their feed, and keep up to date on what they're doing.
Yeah, so I see a question there from Silch. With 51%, you can orphan any non-empty block and mine empty block yourself. Yes, that's correct. So if you have 51%, you can just orphan all other miners on the network, and just keep 100% of the block reward, and keep on having every single block empty. So those miners are now have a choice: just shut down or move to another coin, or just join Shark Pool and make more profit than they did before. Now, I don't need to tell you that most of these guys don't give a shit about the coin that they're mining. They're just mining for profit. So I think Shark Pool has a bright future ahead.
I'm going to just mention the Shark Pool Telegram, which is probably the better way to connect to people in Shark Pool and get the news and help out as well.
Yeah.
So I have a lot of people that ask me. I run a social media community primarily on Facebook, and they want to know all kinds of information about Shark Pool and how they can prepare So you mentioned Equihash. Does that mean you'd prefer people get ready with GPUs or
I don't know, man. This could also be part of like proof of social media, where I say it's Equihash, but it's actually something else.
Oh,
but it
man.
might also be Equihash. I don't know. You know, the funny thing about this is that the people who have like most interest in actually this working or not working are the people not contacting me. Like the guys from Avalanche, they banned me from every single channel they have to not talk about anything that I'm doing. I see it like I'm doing them a favor, because they keep on saying proof of work is not safe, and they're right. But
Yeah,
for
sorta.
all others, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. And also these developers of these alts, I'm sure they're thinking of all kinds of technical manners to stop this. The whole thing is you can do that up to a certain point, and then it becomes so centralized. You might as well just use a spreadsheet. So, you know.
Yeah, for sure. No, it's fascinating. You know, I've done a lot of research into mining myself. What do you think of something like these multi-algo coins? Like Vertcoin was, $500 to double spend for like a week using nice hash, but now they've forked in. I think they're forking in stuff from Digibyte, like their multi-shield. What do you think of stuff like that, where you'd have to go at it with a bunch of different algos at once? Is that something that's
I don't think any of it will be an issue, because eventually all of these alts fail to understand that it's an economic system they're part of,
right?
And that these miners are economically incentivized to do the one thing or the other. In the end, I foresee that if there are alts left that can only be mined through some ASIC that hasn't been developed yet, I can imagine Bitcoin miners being incentivized enough to simply develop that ASIC for that specific coin, simply to destroy.
No, it's fascinating. I think it's brilliant. My favorite thing about Bitcoin has always been Nakamoto consensus. So like to hear like the way that you think about it is just like I'm inspired by it. I just think it's exciting. It's like you talk about starting a war that's never been started before, being that first general of its kind. I'm just like, he's right. This is exciting.
yeah, I'm pretty excited myself too.
I'm going to highlight a bit the terminology on proof of work a second for the viewers. A lot of people think centralization, mining is centralized. It's not. There's a centrality of the network within mining, which gives mining its strength, and it can have this centrality while remaining decentralized. And what the decentralized part means is that when a mining node is knocked out or turned off, the network, which is the small world network, that centrality, self-heals. And I don't know why I'm speaking to my mic when I should be looking at my screen. Yeah, basically the decentralized part means that the network self-heals, and that's the decentralized part, whereas the centrality part, which is not centralized, different, is the small world network within the center. And this is the proof of work. Now, what Ari's talking about is that this proof of work power can be like, say, put on another blockchain, say like Sharkpool, and that proof of work power, that hash power, can be used to attach itself, say, to other chains and make use of them, or rather make them useless would be better to say. See, all these within the sector of Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies, which there are those of us Bitcoin maximalists who say that there should only be one Bitcoin, which is true because this is how money works, which is for another video and a podcast. In defending Bitcoin through Sharkpool tactics and various other methods, this will come about to only one Bitcoin. And those people that come to this one Bitcoin quicker, like years ago, and today as well, lots of people have got another chance now at the current value, profit sooner than those who come later. And basically, as we've been talking about earlier with Kurt and such, how Bitcoin can be integrated, so interconnected with basically everything, almost everything, not literally everything, but lots of things, means that those who make use of it profit sooner and faster. And yeah, we all get a little bit better, more things out of life. And the whole world gets more interconnected with global trade. But the world cannot do this interconnected global trade when there's 1,000 altcoins out there. If you go to a store in Africa and you have your phone, or not even a store, a small hut or something, and someone wants to trade, and they have 1,000 options for you, you will need, you know, one of those coins. And it's very awkward as a merchant to integrate every single payment option just in case your customer has a specific coin. It costs money to integrate if you don't have a developer, and it costs time. And if it messes up your systems, that's even worse. So this is another reason why one currency works. And we won't get onto velocity of money. I think that's something which Kurt and his group will be talking about at some point. So sorry, I rambled on a bit there. But this is the importance of proof of work, basically, in the centrality of a network. And this is part of what Sharkpool is and is doing in defending Bitcoin. So back over to you, Ari.
Yeah. Basically, that's all I can say on Sharkpool. I think mining contracts, and I'm trying to diversify that and present it in. So they're basically mining contracts, but they're not presented as mining contracts. So it's gamifying the experience for the one buying it. I can hear Craig saying security sometimes when I'm thinking about these things. But yeah, it should be fine.
I'm going to actually get Daniel Connolly on for a little bit, if that's okay, Ari.
Yeah, sure. I'm all done. So
for the next 15-20 minutes, and then we're going to have Laurie in for the last 40 minutes. So hi, Daniel. Over to you, Dan. He's going to talk to us about anything and everything he wants.
Hi, hello. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, good. I just want to say hello to everybody. Start joining in on these talks more often. I could talk a little bit about Bitcoin SV. We're planning a new release in what, 3 weeks, something like that, February the 11th. That's the planned date right now. It'll mainly be performance improvements in the area of transaction propagation, so propagating transactions across the network. Various fixes, not really some of the features that people have been asking for. We have been following that, and we're looking at those next, and we're talking to other developers and other teams about priorities and which ones to put in first. This release that's coming up now doesn't change any of the consensus rules. It's a performance upgrade, basically. What else we've been busy with? There's been Christmas and New Year, a nice break. We've been busy with the Gigablock network, so that's one of the things that we'll be adding to the next release. It'll be anyone with an SV node will be able to join the Gigablock network. This network's different from, it's just kind of like test and reg test networks, if you know those. It's but separate. We wanted to keep the test network quite small and lean so that developers can continue to use that on just standard machines. Whereas the Gigablock test network has got the volume, right? It's got big blocks on it. It's already at like about 145 gigabytes of blockchain, even though we've only been running it since I think September, something like that. So it's growing large, and in future you'll need big equipment to run it.
And is that currently, is that testnet, Daniel, or where is that running?
Well, it's like a testnet. It's pretty similar to testnet. Technically, it's very similar, but it's just separate. It's just running out there on the internet.
Oh, okay.
We we've started to invite some other people into it. Like we need a block explorer for it. The block explorers that we've tried don't like the big blocks very much, right? So we're talking to other teams to try and get them on board. The idea being that it will be an environment where anyone could test their applications or their systems with big blocks.
That's interesting. Will Terranode sort of come out in the same way? Like if you're currently doing the gigablock, when let's say a year down the road, will Terranode be in that position when we've got gigabyte blocks that are mainnet and just functioning, or is it going to be a different path?
Well, Terranode is software. I mean, there's different. I mean, we're investigating different approaches, and some of those tests are being done on the gigablock network. The gigablock network is like a Bitcoin SV will run is being used there, right? It's just got big blocks pretty much continuously. We had a 24-hour period of 64 meg blocks, for example, and just pushing these through really helps us to investigate and research what the performance bottlenecks are and how we can alleviate those. Terranode's there are sort of experiments being done with Terranode as we determine the best way forward. They're not in a state yet to be anywhere near release, right? The Terranode's going to take a while.
Sure.
Until then, we've got Bitcoin SV. We estimate Bitcoin SV can easily suit us for the next couple of years with its monolithic architecture, right? So we're going to be improving it steadily to handle bigger and bigger blocks, and adding or rather removing the limits or adding new features so that people can get going with their various use cases for building on top of Bitcoin SV.
Very cool. Is there stuff?
So there'll be more information about all of this coming out soon. This is just like, I thought it would be good to jump on here and start joining in the conversation and give a quick update of what we've been up to.
Sure. Does anybody else have specific questions? Jam is asking, what's the monthly cost of maintaining a BSV node today? Somebody said that cloud services cost maybe 100 or 150 to become part of the network. Is that something that you would encourage, or maybe not if they don't have a specific use they're providing, or what do you think, Daniel?
You could probably get right now with the state of the Bitcoin network right now, the Bitcoin SV network, you could get away with a server much cheaper than that, right?
Yeah.
We just don't have the volume yet on the main network. I guess that might change any times.
Sure.
But to run on the gigablock network, then that's the kind of figure you'll need at least, yeah.
Sure.
As time goes on. The blockchain just keeps growing, and it's growing quickly. So,
yeah. It's funny. Like we talk about that's good. Is that good in the short term? Does that cause you guys developmental hassle?
Well, it's part of the challenge. I wouldn't call it hassle.
Sure.
It's more like it's really fascinating, analyzing the problems that all of these transactions, when you're pushing out like 500 to 1,000 transactions per second across a network of nodes spread around the world, right? Analyzing where the bottlenecks are is really interesting work.
Sure.
Yeah. And we've made some good improvements to Bitcoin SV in that area. starting to spread the load among multiple cores of a machine and things like that. So it's looking really good.
That's interesting. We got Tone's notes asking, SV nodes seem to connect to many ABC and BU nodes. Is there a reason to do this? Or would it be better to ban them and kick them out? Or what do you think? Your opinion. It doesn't have to be official.
So that's another thing that will improve in the next release is that, when you first connect with your node, it looks for so-called DNS seed nodes. And we've eliminated the ones that ABC and BU are using because they have so many ABC and BU nodes on them, obviously.
Sure.
And we have a set of DNS seeds that only have SV nodes. So that situation should improve. Okay. Your node will connect faster and will sync faster when you start it from scratch.
Cool.
But the BU and ABC nodes do still BU on ABC, I should say. They do still leak into our network, and you will always get connections with them. Yeah, you can ban them if you want. There's a script in there for IP and.
Yeah, it looks like Tone's notes just added the
oh yeah, okay, that looks good. Using JQ, all right, yep. Where you haven't got Bitcoin SV in it. Yeah, that looks fine.
Is there anywhere where we can see how many transactions are still replaying? Do we know the percentage of any of that? Like how many coins or how many transactions rather are still replaying on both networks?
That would be an interesting statistic to look into.
Yeah. It just occurred to me. I haven't heard that discussed in over a month. I'd like to know.
No, I think most people have sort of have worked out how to split their coins and things like that. Yeah. We are still talking about replay protection. That's top of the list next, I think.
Sure.
But what exact form that's going to take, I'm not sure. I mean, there are many options there, right? So we have to see. We're worried about people who are new to Bitcoin SV or Bitcoin, about them having difficulty with it. I think most of the people who've been in there since the split, they've already sorted out what they need to sort out.
Yeah.
But it's for the new people. We want to put something in place. We're just not quite sure what yet.
Do you think, is that a barrier right now for fiat on ramps? Like, do you think that's what's actually causing Coinbase and stuff to drag their heels, or is that not really an issue technically for them?
I don't think so, because it shouldn't really be they is well within their technical capabilities to sort it out.
At least you'd think.
Yes. So I don't think that should be much of a hindrance there.
Cool.
Yeah.
So, anything else crazy going on behind closed doors, or business as usual? Is it like back to normal basically on the SV team, or how are you guys doing?
Yeah, we're doing good. It's back to normal, I think. Things quiet down over the Christmas period. People take holidays and stuff like that. But now everyone's come back refreshed, and we're full steam ahead. And seeing a constant stream of activity. Another thing we want to look at after the February release, right? I'm going to start working on it real soon now. Is putting a dev branch up on the GitHub and getting our work out there more regularly. Okay, we still want it to go through some sort of QA before we publish it out there, but getting into a more open environment where we push our work out more frequently instead of having like this one big blast every now and again when we release something, and it will help us get feedback and things like that. So that's something we want to put in place soon.
Very cool.
Okay.
All righty. Thanks for your time, Daniel.
Yeah,
sure.
I will add then, people who want to know what's going on with Bitcoin SV, particularly coming out from Enchain and CoinGeek, is to get in touch, keep track, follow the Twitter. Personally, I refer to it is the reference client, but as Bitcoin before, people need to understand that Nchain and CoinGeek are not the entirety of Bitcoin. They just represent one aspect of Bitcoin, and that Bitcoin itself is an entire sector of itself. Good, so there is some, media out there portraying that, Bitcoin SV is owned by like Nchain and CoinGeek type of thing, that type of portrayal where they say how Roger owns BCH, which in a way he kind of does now, actually. But this is not the actual case with Bitcoin, and it is important that people will slowly get to realize this. But it is also important that miners and people wishing to do a lot of deep, high-end dev work understand that the Bitcoin SV node is the reference client. And there are other wallets out there, Handcash as well. The CentB, which we're going to have Lorien on in a minute, which I will check. Lorien, are you with us?
Yep.
I will ask for last questions on Daniel in a minute, and then we will be moving over to Lorien. I want to point out one thing about the wallets and the nodes, Bitcoin Satoshi's vision as well. A lot of people have always, as we discussed earlier, people think wallets are just for moving A to B, but they can actually, and are meant to be used for a lot more, and they can be specialized in many different ways. And this will start to happen more and more, and this year we'll start to see the fruit of that as different devs team have been hard at work. So keep that in mind, people, when you think about wallets, because the old paradigm has been wallets are just different types of fancy wallets where you just move A to B. But what we are showing is how Bitcoin really works, and wallets and particular nodes, specific nodes like Bitcoin SV, can be specialized and provide users with far more utility and capabilities than people have realized. So any last questions for Daniel?
Actually, I have one. How do we get rid of asyncs? Because I think he's all trouble. And then how do we encourage other people to if Bitcoin SV is the reference client, how do we get other people to jump in? What's their incentive to jump in and create consensus nodes to participate? This is to Daniel.
Yeah.
Maybe it's
I would love to see other clients out there, yeah. And we've noticed a couple of pull requests on GitHub. There's been one from Neil, and a couple of teasing ones, I think. But we'd love to see more input. We'd love to see more interaction with the community, and we'd love to see an alternative client too.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be fantastic. I mean, BU and XT both do support Bitcoin SV, and I hope they'll continue to do that. I really do. So yeah.
Then what do you think of asyncs? I know.
I didn't catch what you said there. I don't really know anything about them.
Yeah, I mean, they're connected to BitConnect is their business background, so I think it's probably all bad. But
yeah, no, I don't know them.
Okay. Well, cool. Thank you, Daniel.
Okay.
So are we passing the ball to Lorien at this point?
Sorry,
Joel? Yeah, you're muted there. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be moving on to Lorien now. Thank you.
Hi. Thanks. Thanks for putting this on. It's nice to be here. It's nice to chat to you all. And Joel, you said that there's 40 minutes, and the mistake that people make is they give me that amount of time, and I usually fill it. So I'm quite happy to tell you a story, take you on a journey, and if you do want to break in and ask a question, please feel free to do so. But what I've done is I have got some slides because I wanted to give you a bit of background. CentB is just one thing that's been on my mind for the last few years. And there's been a lot of thought and another whole industry that I've been involved in prior to actually starting CentB. I was in the energy industry, and that's when I got into Bitcoin. So it was about 2011. In fact, it was 2011 because it was when the Gawker article came out about Silk Road, and that's when I first heard about Bitcoin. I think it was June or July 2011. And so it immediately struck me. I'm Zimbabwean, so I know what it's like when a country has issues with money. And so there's been a lot of history that kind of brought me to the place that I am today involved with Bitcoin. And if you like, I'm going to now, I've got some slides and some pictures. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share my screen, and then I'm going to take you just on a little bit of a history of where I've been in a space, and also some of the things that you might not know about what CentB has going on. I know that there's been some, let me just see if I can get the screen share going. I don't even know how to do it. I see on Zoom there's a screen share, but it's grayed out. You know how I can...
if you're using the app, it should be green, actually. Bottom center, it's gray for you.
It says share.
Yeah.
Share desktop, is that what it is? Okay,
there you go. Yep, there it is.
Cool. Okay, so let me press play. Can you see the slide here, or do you just still see all these windows on the right here?
Bitcoin SV, a universe of payments, and your picture. And
you don't see the
pictures on the right only appear to us lot. For the recording, it only sees the slides.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Okay, so let me start off then.
Can I have some of that stew stuff?
Someone's on. Okay. So this is something that everybody's seen. You know, it's the big joke about money and Zimbabwe, the $100 trillion note, which I have a few here, and this is kind of the reality of the world that we're in right now. You know, that these things can happen, and when I first heard about Bitcoin, this had just happened in Zimbabwe. You know, in 2008, the world went into the financial crisis, but Zimbabwe had already collapsed financially, and we had all these people who had no idea that suddenly you could wake up and all your currency is worth literally nothing. And this is when I got into Bitcoin, because it was just so apparent to me that money is broken, and if there is a system that can save this, then that's something that can appeal to me. And also, I'm a software engineer, so it was just all these different elements that came together that pushed me into this Bitcoin world and made it feel so real to me. So it's always been about money to me. I know that there's all these amazing things that people are doing now, like tokenized and so on, and they're talking about assets and that. And I spent many years since 2011. I had another company before CentB called Ban Ki-moon, and what I was doing was trying to tease out all these use cases that Bitcoin blockchain had in terms of digital assets and so on, and smart contracts. And that has been my whole focus, is trying to figure out what blockchain is capable of. But my original passion about it is money, and just moving money from A to B. And in Africa, everybody's got mobiles, and everybody, there's a huge segment of the population that use mobile money. So they don't have bank accounts. They have a cell phone. They've got an M-Pesa account, or another mobile money is called EcoCash. That's used in Zimbabwe, and almost all transactions move through these mobile money systems. So what we have is we've got people who are very, very mobile aware, very mobile money centric, and also living in a world where banks are not trusted, where the financial system itself is not trusted, where currency is inflating, and it's just this perfect place to have something like Bitcoin come onto the scene and completely transform it. So it's never been a doubt in my mind that Bitcoin would come along and is going to absolutely transform the world. And I see it happening within the countries that I live in. I live in South Africa at the moment. This is where I've been almost all my life. When I moved from Zim when I was quite young. And being in South Africa is cool because, it's a kind of fake Africa. It's a sort of first world Africa. Infrastructure is good. Things kind of work much better than everywhere else in Africa. There's a lot of development going on here. It's a fantastic country to be able to build a tech company and to sort out the problems of the rest of Africa. So this has been something that is just in my DNA now. I haven't thought about anything else for the last 8 years. And another thing about Africa is that when it comes to mobile payments, a lot of these companies that are coming along are growing quite rapidly. What they do is they do mobile payments, and they allow people to snap QR codes. So QR codes are now almost everywhere. If you go into any restaurant, if you go into any retailer, you can pay with your mobile money or with a mobile device, and you can pay using a QR code. And it reached every level. We've got people who sell Big Issue on the side of the road, guys who will they'll look after your car so nobody goes and jacks it, and you pay them a few rand. But you can actually do it with mobile money, and you can use QR codes. So this is just how it is, and you can just see how everything is geared to a Bitcoin adoption. So one of the things I was doing in 2011, at the time I discovered Bitcoin, was I was building out smart grid payment systems, where there are a lot of people in Africa who use prepaid electricity. So what happens is they'll go and buy electricity, and it's pay as you go. When they run out, they have to go and find a vendor to go and make payments and purchase the electricity, and then they load it onto their smart meters. But you can do that remotely. So at that time, I thought, and also there was a huge problem here where a lot of people were using cash payments, and they had to go and to find a vendor. If you run out of electricity, it's very hard to travel to the closest urban area or the closest vendor where you can go and purchase your electricity. So for me, it was just a natural thing. What I did was I built the world's first payment system built into a smart meter grid. And this is kind of what it looked like. These are actually slides that I used to use when I was telling people about this thing. So what happens is it's just a simple payment gateway. What it does is it links directly into a smart meter, electricity meter. People could then pay Bitcoin into the smart meter. It would calculate a tariff, figure out how many kilowatt hours, and then it would remotely load. And I thought this was going to be something that really drives the growth of Bitcoin, because now people have the ability to pay for utilities with a digital payment system that's not linked to fiat currency, that doesn't have the same restrictions and so on as other payments. And I was really looking forward to this growing. But of course, Bitcoin, BTC started becoming expensive to transact with, and it was a huge pain. But I was determined to figure this out and to turn this into something. And what we did was we started creating other things, thinking about smart contract platforms where you could have smart contracts that were connected to these meter grids. And then you could have these sort of decentralized payment systems that use smart contracts to then go and issue kilowatt hours to these smart meters. So this was kind of where I was going. I was trying to expand on this idea of not just Bitcoin, but now further ideas around smart contracts. And another thing that this started leading me to was this idea of public utilities that you, instead of having, if you have a public utility like street lights in a neighborhood, what happens is, those street lights are paid for by the municipality, and sometimes a lot of those utilities are being used, and they're being paid for, but they're not really being used. So what I started building were these micro public utility services, where what you could do is, if you lived in a street and you wanted to have your street light on outside your house, then what you could do is you could send small amounts of Bitcoin to the actual street light right there. So what we did was we did the same thing. We linked a smart meter to the street light. And then by doing that, we solved a lot of problems in terms of how municipalities recover costs. Because one of the biggest issues with municipalities, and this is around the world, it's not just with Africa, is that people consume or they use utilities, and then the utility has to now go and recover the costs. And that's very difficult, because once somebody's consumed something, it's hard to chase after them to actually get the money. So we thought, well, this is going to solve the public utilities or just any utilities where people can actually pay as they need it. So this is just an example of a public utility that's now being paid for as people need it. And if people don't need it, if there's a street that nobody cares if the lights are on or not, then you don't need to go and pay for those lights to be on, because nobody cares. Instead of having to just turn the lights on, it's all wasteful, it's being a great expense. Here we can have these micro utilities. So this is why, for me, Bitcoin was just such a wonderful tool where it's not just about paying something at a retailer. Here we can have micro services, micro transactions paying for utilities, and you can expand this into all sorts of things, even if it was water or all sorts of things like that. So this is where I was going in terms of building payments into electricity specifically. And then, but what's nice about this, when it comes to Bitcoin payments, you don't have to be in the country, to pay for something. You don't have to be geographically located. You could be anywhere in the world and you can pay for things. And so I thought this was a possibility where you can now be, let's say you're a student and you're studying abroad. You can have your mom now, instead of sending money to your account so you could buy electricity or you could pay your rent, but in this case electricity, you could have a parent that pays the electricity directly, because now it's not needing to go, the payment doesn't need to be geographically located. And then I was thinking of other use cases for this. Let's say you are somebody who wants to make a difference. You want to make an impact. You want to contribute to some needy cause. Imagine now there's a little African school somewhere, and they're struggling to pay for utilities. They can have a little Bitcoin meter there, and you can be sitting in the States and you can send over $1 and pay for an hour's worth of lights in this little school. And what you're doing now is you're completely sidestepping the whole idea of having to send money to an institution or an organization, and then they go and opaquely distribute the funds. They might spend some on administration, some on something else entirely, maybe a little bit of it is stolen. But, it's always the case where a tiny amount of the money that you actually donate goes to that cause that you believe in. And so if you can now set these up in schools, great. Now you've got a payment system where you can pay your $1 of Bitcoin, and the whole dollar goes to the meter and pays for a whole $1's worth of electricity. So this was the sort of the things that I was thinking again. And instead of just talking about it, because I was at a lot of conferences and so on speaking about these types of things, I thought, well, let me go and actually do this. Let's go and set up a school where we can do this. And what I had is I've got a friend who is the founder of a blockchain company called Grid Singularity, and he's based in Vienna, and he's trying to come up with decentralized energy grids using blockchain. Unfortunately, they're not using Bitcoin, they're using Ethereum and so on. They'll eventually come around to it and realize that Bitcoin is the only blockchain worth doing anything, or that you can do any of this on. But we had this idea where he was going to give a talk in Boston at MIT. This is Boston. And he said, why don't we do a quick demo? We can actually show people at Boston where we can now go and turn the lights on at a school. And so what I did in South Africa, this is in a township outside of Johannesburg where I live, called Soweto. This is a tiny little school, and this little school is like most other schools. They've got a couple buildings and a small budget, and what they do is they try and use that small budget to pay for everything. But obviously, there's always things that can't get paid for. Sometimes stuff gets broken, toilets get broken, and they don't have enough budget to pay for everything. So what I did was I went there and we put in this smart meter. It was just a standard smart meter, and we rigged it up to the Bitcoin payment system. And then what we did was we got Ed. This is Ed now at Boston. He sent a Bitcoin directly to the school. It was in the middle of the night, and the lights, we zeroed the meter, the lights came on, and there were a lot of parents and teachers there. And when the lights came on, from this payment that was across the globe, it took a couple seconds because it was a zero transaction. At this stage, it was Bitcoin BDC. There wasn't a BSV or anything. But it just showed the power of being able to now touch people across the world using Bitcoin payments, and not having to go through an organization where you can directly fund that meter. So this is the sort of stuff that is still now part of Centby, the DNA of Centby. And, we are going to be including this sort of tech into Centby going forward, because, Centby is not just a wallet. You're saying that, Joel, you said that wallets aren't just meant for moving money A to B, they're meant for stuff. And although Centby is always going to be a payments wallet, it's I don't know if it's ever going to have tokens or anything like that. But we are actually going to be putting in this project. It has a name called Ociso. By the way, if you want to see more information about this, just go and Google TEDx Gamarov, and you're going to see a talk I gave about the school. So that's pretty much what I've given you as a summary. And we're going to put this into Centby. We're going to have a little feature there called Turn the Lights On, and then you can go and donate your little Satoshis, your small change, and you can go and send it to a school somewhere, one of our school partner schools, and you can go and turn the lights on, literally, and make a difference to somebody's life. But going back to this slide, there's this idea of the long tail, Chris Anderson's long tail, where some products have most of the consumers, and then there's lots of little products out there that have very few consumers. Well, charity is sort of the same. You've got a few organizations that get all the money, and then there's a lot of charities, a lot of organizations, or a lot of causes rather, that receives tiny amounts of funding, and up to a point where it becomes impractical to actually fund something. For example, to turn the lights on in a school for an hour is going to cost you less than $1. But to actually make a donation of less than $1 to a cause is very complicated. There's a lot of fees, and it's difficult to do that. But Bitcoin allows you to do that. You can now reach out and reach that long tail of these little causes that would never have access to funding through Bitcoin. You can do this. So we definitely want to try this. We want to make Bitcoin not just, this Centby at least, not just this wallet where you can go and make payments, but we would hope that we can show the world that you can make a difference by using Bitcoin. Bitcoin is wonderful. I think Bitcoin is the greatest thing ever. I've been in love with Bitcoin since the beginning, and I love it because I feel like it can make the world a better place. But no one is really showing, I think Money Button, Ryan's done some charity now, which I'm so pleased about. So there we go. There's an example of showing the world that, Bitcoin can make the world a better place. It's not just for, I guess with a lot of cryptos, it's about avoiding tax and all this rubbish. Well, here we go. We've got an idea where we can make something, we make the world a better place. So check it out if you want to go and see that talk, and you'll see more about what Centby, is. Centby as a company, wanting to change the world as well. So, I'm not going to talk much about Centby now, because there's lots of talks. I guess you can see on the internet. You can see the CoinGeek conference. But Chatbay is something that's is still coming out. We're busy working on it right now. Let me just see. I'm supposed to be skipping to the next one. And Chatbay is just about, our idea that Bitcoin is, at least Centby is a social media app. Let me just see if I can start this up again. And if you did see the talk, let me just talk about the contacts. I sort of touched on this at CoinGeek, but, a lot of people, and we've seen this, people download Centby and they get to the part where they have to put their mobile number in, and then they freak out and they say, no, this is just ridiculous. We're not going to do this. We don't want to give up any of our information. And, that's reasonable, and I understand that. But, the reality is that Bitcoin it's not anti-business, of course, and it's not anti-government. And unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, businesses are going to be required to know things about their customers. And Sentby, we want to be a legitimate business that complies with whatever rules are out there in terms of, what kind of information do we have about our customers. And that's, a reality. If you are a business, you are going to have to know your customer, whether you like it or not. If you are creating open source wallets, fine, you can do whatever you like. No one's going to stop you. But the contact, the mobile number is basically your first level of what any government is going to require of you to know about your customer, especially if you're dealing with financial services or a financial product. And that's what Sentby is. It's a financial product. But more than that, we like contacts. We think that the world is social. And, one of the most powerful social things we have is our contact list. And, it's a wonderful thing if you've already bought into this idea that you have, you need to know something about your customer. And now that means you can know something about their contacts and and them as a contact. It really opens up the world of possibility in terms of social connection or social cohesiveness. Now, of course, Handcash have handles, and I love handles. I think what they've got is a wonderful thing. But handles are a little bit more work. You have to sort of go and seek out the people that you want to connect with. If you have your contacts, it's already built in. So we've decided to go with this. And if you don't like to share your mobile number, that's totally cool. We're not going to, resent any of that. Of course, we love Handcash. Alex and Rafa are great guys, and I'm so pleased that we are together in this world, of SB, trying to grow the SB community. So I'm very pleased about that. So, we've got contacts, and of course now, we want Sentby to be a social network. This is what we like about it. And of course, when it comes to social networks, chat is such an important thing. And we've seen how WeChat and, they're so successful. And, of course, we're not going to, to stay away from good ideas. This is the thing about life is if you see a good idea, take it, try and bring it into your app. I don't think, people are going to, maybe some people look at you as unoriginal. Well, hey, such is life. But we are going to certainly have chat, and the chat is going to allow you to now bring the full idea of Sentby, what it was meant to be. In fact, Sentby was always meant to be a chat app. That's why the logo is a chat bubble. My whole thing was I want to make a WhatsApp of Bitcoin. It's become more than that now. I'd like it to be the WeChat of Bitcoin. Why not? WeChat's taking a long time to get there, so we're going to try and beat them. So here we have these short codes. You can write send. You can put the amount of money in there, and it's going to easily take away send money from your Bitcoin wallet. So this is going to be the full idea of Sentby once this works, and we're hoping to release a beta version of this, in February, and then you guys can try it out and see if you like chat in Sentby. Obviously, Sentby is still, I know that a lot of people are saying it's sluggish and it's so on, but it's still early days, and I've pretty much built 95% of it myself, and now we've got some guys that I've managed to poach, thanks to Enchain, poaching some guys from big financial companies and stealing them away from them. So we're going to be able to speed up Sentby at least. So this is a Sentby. And so if you want to see more about our strategy and so on when it comes to our merchant payment systems, definitely watch the CoinGeek London conference. Joel, is it cool for me to carry on, or would you like to ask a question? Because I'm going to talk more about the merchant stuff if you like.
Feel free to carry on. We've got a while. Yeah, I don't mind going over time at all. So, this is your time, and
cool.
Sell yourself, sell Sentby, tell people what you're doing, because this is going out publicly, and yeah.
Okay, cool. So, so that's Sentby. I'm just trying to, looks like my slide is stuck again. Let me just start that up again. That's pretty much the idea of ChatPay. But of course, we're going to have those other value-added services like buying electricity and buying airtime and so on. And that's those are only going to be available in certain countries. In South Africa, we've got that all wrapped up. We've got our vouchers and so on, which I, in fact, will talk about now. So the vouchers are onboarding, of course, is a big issue when it comes to getting people into Bitcoin. It's one thing to have an app that works well or a service that's great. Yes.
Noreen, the slides on full screen.
Okay. Well, it's just that.
Yeah,
so it's one thing to have a service that works amazingly, but of course we have to try and get people into Bitcoin. That's going to be a perennial problem. It's going to be forever. How do we get people in? And exchanges are a horrible way to get people in, especially these crypto exchanges that have multiple currencies, because anybody who can get Bitcoin from a cryptocurrency exchange, immediately they are now aware that there are other cryptocurrencies out there, and then they want to start playing and trading and buying Ripple and buying Ether and all this junk. And so an exchange is actually a terrible thing. Now, of course, an exchange is a necessary thing, because we need to be able to get people in and out of crypto Bitcoin with fiat. So we're going to need it. And in fact, our problems really are exchanges, especially SV exchanges. We were fine when it was BTC. BCH came along, and thankfully, some exchanges started now supporting BCH only really recently. And then as soon as the exchange partners that we had in the different countries, because we've got exchange partners now in Zimbabwe and Nigeria, and obviously in Europe and so on, those were our exchange partners that we depended on, because if we think about our remittance, because what we do is we allow people to send Bitcoin from CentB directly to a mobile money product like M-Pesa or EcoCash. We need an exchange on the other side so we can sell the Bitcoin and essentially purchase mobile money and load the user's phone. So we need exchanges, but an exchange for a consumer is a terrible thing, because now suddenly they are aware of other Bitcoin, other cryptos, and it dilutes the whole market. Now suddenly people aren't just trading with BSV; they're trading with all this other rubbish, and it completely completely ruins everything. The fact that there are multiple currencies out there have literally ruined everything for all of us. We are I've been so excited about a world where people use Bitcoin and can easily move money from A to B, can have their money not exposed to the fragility of central banks. But yet now we have all these different cryptocurrencies which are doing worse. It's not just that Bitcoin has to now fight fiat. Bitcoin's got to fight all this other stuff, and of course, Bitcoin is going to shine and prove itself. I have no doubt, and I have a lot of faith in Satoshi's original vision. That's why I love Satoshi's vision. And in fact, it's always been easy for me to choose the right chain, because that's all I've ever believed in was Bitcoin as it was originally devised. So I have a lot of faith that SV is going to shine, but unfortunately, it doesn't seem that it's going to wipe everything out, and create a clean, shiny world where there's just BSV. So we've got these exchanges, and now we have to wait for these exchanges to start supporting SV, and that's going to be a slow process. But it's not just enough that these exchanges support SV. We've got to now fight liquidity, because even though there might be tons of coins being exchanged on these exchanges, they're all being exchanged for other currencies like BTC and Ripple or whatever the heck else it is. So it's really given us a headache, because now we have to delay some of these products. But the voucher product is, to us, the best way to get people into a Bitcoin, especially those people who haven't had experience with exchanges or just don't have the ability to access those exchanges. Those are the people that we have great hope in, because they haven't yet been exposed to this crazy cryptoverse, of multiple currencies. They don't have a wallet that's got support for 50,000 currencies like Jax or something like that. What they're going to do is they're going to want to use Bitcoin and all they're going to know is that there is a Bitcoin out there. They might have this inkling that there's multiple, but they're just going to want this thing called Bitcoin. And if we can then, what our product is they go into a retailer and they say, we want Bitcoin. And as soon as they do that, they hand over their fiat currency. They get a voucher. The voucher is actually generated on the device. And then we have a voucher partner that allows it scans that voucher code. What we do is we check that the customer has a KYC level, that's a know your customer level. And if they are level 0, which means we just know their mobile number, they're going to have low limits. If they want to raise those limits, then they're going to have to be putting in some information. So their first name, their surname, and their ID. And then that's going to give them the ability to purchase a Bitcoin voucher up to a certain level. Now, this is necessary because regulators require, when I say require, they will require when they get round to establishing those rules. So we're just preempting that, but also, we work very closely with the Reserve Bank. And our tax authorities and our regulators. We've gone out of our way to make them feel comfortable with Bitcoin. I've spent so many hours workshopping with central bankers in multiple countries, explaining to them how transparent Bitcoin is, how convenient it's going to be for auditing, how efficient it's going to be when it comes to tax collection, because now they can receive tax directly off VAT invoices and so on. So, I've gone out of my way for years now, as part of Ban Ki-moon and consulting to these organizations, to show them how transparent it is and show them that this is going to be their best thing ever, because now they can have absolute visibility over transactions and they can easily audit businesses and so on. And so what we're doing now is we're giving them confidence that we can now KYC our customers as well. So again, this might be to a Bitcoiner, the worst thing ever, that we're now collaborating with regulators and we are capturing user information. But again, that's the reality of this. If you want this thing to grow, you've got to fight that Roger Ver mentality of, screw the government, they're evil. The best thing we can hope for is that they all die in a fire. That's going to get you nowhere. It's just not practical.
I'm just going to throw in that the status often, how a lot of these things work with the identity thing is that it's voluntary information. People volunteer their information into things like this, and then that's the information which gets used, rather than it's like something attached to the push-pull thing. How the old system is it pulls all the information from the traditional system with the credit debit card system, whereas Bitcoin is a push thing. The identity thing and what you're talking about works in a similar way. People will have to end up volunteering information to be used in similar ways.
Yes, that's right. In this particular case, the only reason we're asking for that information is because if you want to buy Bitcoin with fiat, that's where the requirement comes for you to know your customer. If that customer, if somebody on SendBee never purchases Bitcoin, a SendBee Bitcoin product with fiat, you never have to share that information. And in fact, I know very well how these regulators think now. Having been involved in this for years, is that they're not worried about spending. If you've got Bitcoin, even if you've got Bitcoin and you send it to a different country, that's not an issue that they, even at the limited understanding, that's not what they're trying to stop. It's not that they think, all these people have hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin on their phones, and now they're going to send it to China. That's a big, exchange control risk. It's not that. It's the risk is now you're taking fiat, their fiat, and you're converting it into Bitcoin. At that point, that's the point that they know and feel that if they don't know what's going on, if they don't have visibility of that process where their currency is being converted into Bitcoin, that's what makes them uneasy. So we're going to give them that confidence. If somebody wants to buy Bitcoin, if they want to take government fiat and turn it into Bitcoin, we're going to have a record of that and we're going to know who that person is. But once you've got the Bitcoin, go ahead, go and spend it on a Lambo, do whatever you need to do. And so that's wonderful. it's not about source of funds. Where did you get your Bitcoin? It's source of funds. Where's your fiat coming from? And that's a great relief, in terms of so like you say, it's an opt-in. If you want to go and buy Bitcoin with fiat, you're going to need to share information. Coinbase is requiring it. All exchanges are going to require it at some point if they don't now, and that's just the reality. So we're going to be doing that, and this is how we're going to move this space forward. Okay, so this is just a few little graphics about how that happened. You hand in your fiat, you get your voucher. Once you've got your voucher, once you've got your Bitcoin, we've got the mobile money thing. So we're going to send money directly to a recipient in a different country, and we convert it and so on. So we've got that. In fact, right now, we feel like we're going to totally undercut all these other mobile money remittance companies, and we hope to drive a huge amount of volume, because even South Africa to Zimbabwe, I mean, two relatively poor countries, there's I think it's $1 billion a year. Is it $1 billion or $10 billion a year is moved from South Africa to Zimbabwe? That's just one corridor in Africa. And people who are moving that money are doing it at 15%. If we can bring, even 10% of that volume into BSV, we hope to be able to, really crank up the volume of BSV and make people realize that this is a fantastic thing. But at this stage, our problem now is BSV exchanges in the other countries. So we're going to be, working on that now, trying to get our exchange stuff going. And then, of course, our merchant payment system. Now, this is something that wasn't really ever part of CentB. We wanted merchant payments, but this was actually Enchain. Enchain, when we spoke to Enchain about CentB, what we had was we did have a point of sale system, but it was basically like a POP or a BitPay or something like that. It wasn't the kind of merchant payment systems that we're building or we're working on right now. This is now something that goes a lot deeper, and this is what Enchain was very keen on. They wanted the ability for all retailers to accept Bitcoin. And if we have to get major big retailers like Tesco's or Marks and Spencer or one of those big retailers, trying to put a POP or a BitPay or a CentB POS in there is very, very hard. You've got to have a huge incentive for a retailer to now go and adopt a new kind of point of sale. They have to have all their customers clamoring to use this point of sale. And that's the only way you're going to get a new kind of point of sale into an existing retailer. So we are working very hard in trying to build Bitcoin payments into the existing points of sale. And, there's different kinds. There's lots of different ways of doing it, lots of different things. And they all have their own complexities. A lot of them have this sort of what's called this issuer-acquirer model, where normally it's a bank card that's issuing the money, and then an acquirer bank that's recovering the money, pulling the money. We've got to try and figure out how do we create that same model where instead of a card, and an issuing bank and an acquiring bank going through this POS terminal, how do we intercept those messages, create a Bitcoin payment, but yet still send the same messages all the way through using the same architecture, so everybody in the middle still thinks that it's the standard procedure for payment messages that go through, and there's all these different sorts of payment types, ISO 8385, and what these postillion devices talk. So we've got to try and figure out how to create the same messages using the same gateways, fooling the whole chain of actors into accepting a Bitcoin payment without there having to be any considerable or even tiny sometimes change to the systems that exist. And we've figured out that the only way to do this, if you just think about the architecture, I mean, this is a basic architecture. There's like so many different characters, banks, and so on behind your card payment rails and so on. we're going to be looking at the merchant integrators, because a merchant integrator, there's relatively few of them. They normally, will handle a lot of retailers. We're trying to now get them to build the small little changes to the integrations that they do to be able to accept the Bitcoin payments. So it's very difficult, and some of the things will be simple and not very convenient, and some of them will be superbly convenient, where you can have a sort of tap pay thing, like a near field communication, or at the very least a QR code payment. And the retailer, because this is the most important thing, the retailer mustn't know or care that it's Bitcoin. And that's going to be the tricky part. So we're busy struggling through the motions right now and coming up with a whole design spec and so on. So it's not like we've got something we can deliver. We originally thought this was going to be an SDK. We could build out an SDK with plugins and adapters and so on. You can put it in a box, ship it, and then suddenly every retailer in the world is accepting Bitcoin. It's unfortunately not going to be that easy. So we're going through this process right now, and we hope that we can start doing some things very soon. So anyway, that's basically the summary of of everything that's been happening for the last couple of years. Ideas are on where we're going. We are very excited about the space. We're very excited about BSV. Delighted that we have people like yourselves out there in the community. I love getting feedback from all of you, and I hope that Centbee becomes, if not your only wallet, one of the wallets maybe that you can use. But even if you don't like Centbee, if you can give me feedback, I would love that. It's fun building a wallet, that's for sure. And it's even more fun building it for consumers, people, instead of building B2B systems, which I've spent a lot of time doing. It's nice to build a software that I'm trying to make appealing, to people, and that's really fun. Yeah. So I guess that's that nutshell closed.
I got a couple of things I'd like to ask you, Lorien. First of all, I love your Metropolis poster.
Good movie.
Brilliant. Yeah, no, everybody should watch Metropolis if you're into silent films. But integrations. So in the US, and it might be the same around the developed world, I see a lot of Toast and Shopkeep and a lot of things running on iPad. And one of the things that I've been looking to do in the US is to integrate in such a way that like the cashier does not have to be a crypto savvy, this type of person, but that it's, cash, credit, or Bitcoin are just the options that are there. And that would require business partnerships with Toast and Shopkeep and everybody else. And I'm wondering, is anybody doing that kind of handshake work behind the scenes to say, hey, like we're from the Bitcoin SV community, et cetera. Can we be the exclusive people to jump into that kind of thing? Joel, I see you talking, but you're muted also.
Well, I mean, those sorts of platforms are actually relatively easy to do integrations with. The ones that it's those sort of mom and pop shops or those owner run stores, because for them to put a tablet onto the countertop, that's very simple, very easy. That's why BitPay does well when it comes to bars and at restaurants and so on. That's not the hard part. I think that points of sale like Pop and even BitPay, when they eventually get on board this BSV thing, they're going to continue to acquire those sorts of customers. But the real difference that we're going to be able to make is if we can do it at the large retailer level. Yeah. Because then we suddenly have not just 10 stores, we've got 1,000 stores across the country, and that's when it becomes real. And so no doubt there's going to be guys out there creating little Shopify plugins. I think those already exist. And so on.
The online versions are robust, actually. Those come out within weeks every time there's a new coin, frankly. But it's the brick and mortar. It's the retail point of sale. And I think you're right. Like the big retailers, big grocery chains, that kind of thing are really where we need to integrate. But that requires, I think it requires big businessmen on both sides, frankly. And I think that's the one thing that the entire crypto sphere doesn't have. So,
Yes.
I'm going to tell a tale about CEX. It's a national chain of stores in the UK. Some years ago, I think it was 2014 or 2015, they started accepting Bitcoin, and they sell just secondhand goods, mostly phones and computer games. And I think it was through BitPay they accepted it. And basically, I was the only person who ever shopped there in the southwest of the UK where I am. But every time I popped in, they had to get the one person who was trained to know how to accept Bitcoin payments. And then that normally would take them around half an hour to actually get the right thing, sorted out whatever they were using, and then accept the payment and so on and so on. Mind you, this was just starting around the time when block space was being an issue, and I think they needed to wait for something. But regardless of confirmations, even then, and I'm pretty sure they were using BitPay, it was from a user perspective, I could have just pulled out £10 and gone, here you go. But I will say BitPay were really not doing it right, and I'm agreeing with what Kurt's saying as well, is that I do think at some point there needs to be some form of, this is how you use Bitcoin. We're not quite sure, because SendB is so easy to use. I find it easy. I actually really like the wallet. I like PIN security. I think that's really nice, and I think that's I think some people need the added PIN security, and I think that's really good. But also the contacts is brilliant, and when they integrate that with businesses and you're able to, like, say, message Domino Pizzas, yes, I will take your offer, yes, pizza, and you can just buy your pizza just like that through your SendB app, that's brilliant. That's skipping huge steps. So yeah, I mean, I don't see it as just from a user to chatting to businesses and such. I also see potential ways for SendB to be used for businesses to talk to users who often say, yeah, I wouldn't mind, instead of having all these email stuff, advertisements, which some are legit and people do want them, why not straight to your phone where you can just go pay straight away, like the clips were just showing.
Sure. Yeah, Lorian, your CoinGeek presentation was fantastic, and you mentioned that I think that you had been working on some of these higher level integrations, or at least you've been tasked with researching them. Do you have any updates on any of that stuff?
Yeah, well, we've got quite a comprehensive design spec, which outlines about 5 ways of doing this integration. So some of them are just methodologies. So, for example, the one that I alluded to in the CoinGeek talk was the EMVQR specification.
Yeah.
That would be an example of where we found ways of putting bits of information into the existing points of sale, where you can now you can sort of sidestep those payment rails. But we've also come up with other things that are going to require development and some technology. So what we're probably going to do is, but I don't know the times or the date, what's going on. I'm going to have to probably speak to my partner Angus. We're going to probably publish that. I think, we've really presented that and been in discussion with Enchain with that. We're not entirely happy because it's not, sometimes you can make it work, but it's not very convenient for the customer. Like, for example, there's one of the things that we came up with, which is very easy to do. The way it works is that you get a card, and you actually can. And now that Craig writes a document about how he's done all the security on the card stuff, maybe we'll include some of that. But this was a very easy way to bring payments in. You have a card, and then that just uses the normal card rails. But unfortunately, it requires user input from a mobile phone. So can you see now, it's a very easy way to make a Bitcoin payment because you don't have to replace any of the infrastructure. You can use a standard card with a mag stripe or chip and pin, but it requires the customer now to have the swipe or the insert or the tap, and then on your phone, you've got to now go and confirm the payment. You know, it's almost like you get an OTP type thing where you have to say, yes, I accept that this is the payment I want to make. So you can see that although it works and it doesn't require much effort to enable such a thing, it's not a great experience for the customer. Right. You know, where the customer's in the queue, they swipe, and now they're going to have another device, and they have to. So there's some of those as well that we've got as well. So I think we'll probably be publishing that document with all those different methodologies and recipes and stuff shortly, I'd imagine. And then what we really want to do is we want to get out the point of sale, which is basically just a BIP 70 point of sale. And we hope to have that out in the next, in this quarter. So that's coming out soon. And then that we'll give to the community, and then they can go and do what they like with it. But that's not a retail integration. That's going to require, in the same way that BitPay requires a tablet, and then you're going to need to have a payment processor behind it. You're going to have a commercial relationship with the retailer. So, so we're trying to come up with this universe of possibilities right now, and I think that's going to take, some time before we have the perfect solution.
Sure. I've long said, that Bitcoin, the whole Bitcoin community has been heavy on computer science and a little bit light on entrepreneurs. So I think bringing in both, frankly, I mean, I know you're both, but you're a rare gem. So we're glad to have you. But I think we need more people to, design tools that other entrepreneurs can take and then build a business around. And it sounds like that's roughly what you're working on there, which is very exciting. Yeah.
No, we understand as well as all of you do that this is going to be an effort from all of us. Every one of us have a role to play, in whatever capacity it is. And it's a big job. We are now considered the fringe of the fringe, which is so ironic since, we are the original. But, we've all got this role to play, building the community out, spreading the message, creating whatever tools, whatever it is, because this pie isn't going to grow, and we're not going to get our piece of it, and we're not going to change the world if we just, sit back. So we all have a big job to do. And I'm pleased that all of us here, and I recognize a lot of names in the group here. Everybody here I've noticed doing so much, and I'm so grateful to be part of this community. And I must say, this BSV, since we've forked off, and I've been involved since the BTC days. I've got a lot of friends that are no longer so friendly. From BTC, they think I'm a complete lunatic now. But we just got to knuckle down and make this happen. We'll do this. I'm confident.
Yep.
On that note, everyone, I will be calling an end to this meeting and also saying that we are looking out for creators, builders and teachers, all of us, and not just us in particular, but the sector itself, Bitcoin itself, is looking out for those type of people who can look at Bitcoin and build something and build a business and profit from it, monetize yourself and bring that to the people around you who you might care about, and then they can monetize themselves, and then you all profit, and eventually bring it to the businesses and form some circles where everyone trade and interconnect with Bitcoin, and in that you will find yourself saving money. There's an often misunderstood thing about people being rich. They think that, a lot of people get silver spoons in life, or that people just get lucky and whatnot. But one of the realities is that a lot of people get richer and make money because they find ways to save money and not to spend so much. And one of the many things Bitcoin is it will allow people to do that, to save money, to stop spending so much money, and to make little shortcuts and to do things properly while they're interconnecting with people. So if you are watching this video and you can only think of the profit and the money to be gained, then great. You know, you learn how to monetize yourself, learn how to use the software and the development tools and interconnect with the businesses already here and outside the space, and bring yourself into the profit area. Right, well, okay, I'm going to stop the recording, but I will keep the meeting going for another 15-20 minutes afterwards. Thank you very much, especially for the people who've guest spoken and we weren't expecting you to turn up. Thank you very much, and we shall all talk to you again soon.